And this is it's a wild subject, but it's the reason I'm going now. I mean, I planned on not getting to here for another year.
Yeah,
Um,
it's okay.
but the world needs to know the hope that we have, and that hope is not a maybe in the future. That hope is expectation. We need to know what God wants us to expect. See, we've been taught we can't expect anything from God. We can hope for it, but we can't expect it.
Mm,
No, God wants us to expect what he has said. Everything God says is real.
mm,
It's reality. How we deal with the fact that, yes, what God says is real, but my experience is contrary to what is real.
yeah,
What do I do with that? Well, people have automatically defaulted that, well, what God says will be in the future or some other time, even though God says it's already true. The
yeah,
Greek was oftentimes translated for things that are already, in fact, the Greek constantly is taking the aorist tense and translate. Aorist tense is the past tense. It's a simple past tense. And the Greek uses it a lot, the writers of the New Testament. But oftentimes, if you get in there and you look at verses with the aorist tense, they'll be translated present tense or future tense because the translators cannot apparently conceive how something can be past tense. And so there's often things that God says are past tense, but in our reality, in our paradigm, the way that we live, our experiences and things, it is impossible, literally impossible, that what God says really is past tense. So the aorist must mean something else in these configurations. And so they will take something that's past tense from God and translate it future or present. And we don't have time to get into how that works. But when you finally see it, you go, oh my, wow. You mean, God, you've already done things that we're waiting for you to do? How could it be that you've already done things we're waiting for you to do when we can't see what you've done? So you can't have done it. Because if you had done it, then we would have seen it. We'd
right,
experienced it. So,
right.
and that's where people are. And that's a
Yeah,
legitimate concern. And what do you do with that? And so you just go along with the flow of what's always been because that's always been the way it is, and it can't be any other way. And
mm,
I'm telling you, Lee, and you know me, that yeah, it can be other than what you're thinking, but
yeah,
it's going to require a new way of thinking. And the only way that you're going to have the new way of thinking is understanding words that the way God meant for them and to understand the syntax and understand why this word comes before this word instead of the other way around. Because in English, two words one, in one order makes sense, but if you reverse the order, it can change the meaning of the sentence.
right.
And but we're comfortable with the meaning that we've always had, and to try to change it back to what it is, it just mentally we can't grasp it. We
Right.
don't, and we don't understand how. Okay, if you understand that what I'm saying is real and is true, then how do I get back? How do I reverse it? How do I get back to thinking like God, to thinking His words the way He said them?
Hmm.
It's really easy. It doesn't, but see, we're so used to things happening quick. Everything we want it right now. It's got to happen quick. This is God looks at us as children, but more than children, infants. Oftentimes, he talks about, even though it's not translated necessarily, he'll talk about us as infants or little children.
Hmm.
How long did it take you to grow up to be where you are right now? 30 plus years.
40 plus.
40.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It took, and you're still growing. The
Right,
growth was not fast, and you can't make it go faster.
right.
All you can do is learn to obey God the way that I defined it based on the Greek. You learn to obey God and you keep obeying Him. You
Yeah,
keep pondering and
yeah,
thinking and talking to
yeah,
yourself and talking to others and listening to His truth.
yeah.
And as you continue to let that absorb into your mind, it literally transforms the way you think. It's not an overnight process.
Yeah.
However, I have had it happen overnight many, 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 many times.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
got to the point where I it happened so often that I began to expect it. And then when I found that things were moving slower and slower, and I realized God had just done something special in me to enable me to see something that I couldn't see if it didn't happen fast. So
Yeah.
it didn't happen fast, and now I understand it. But now my growth is just the growth of a child. I mean,
Right.
like I said, I'm 2 years old or 3 years old, in my opinion, because
Right.
I look at the vast knowledge that God has, and that He wants to teach me everything He knows. There is no overnight in that one. That
Right.
is just that is forever.
Yes.
Okay, and forever based on the definition that I have, which I've talked about. We will again sometime.
Yeah.
But it's God is He loves us with a passion that we don't comprehend because of all that we see and feel and experience and all the other people that are suffering. We just look at that, and it's just hard to believe that God can be that passionate about us. It's more like, well, I can be passionate. I'm passionate about you, but, or if.
Right.
Oh, no. We got to remember we are living in His reality, and we are the reality that we are experiencing right now is twisted and distorted because of fake, false knowledge. And that's the reason that all the wars are going on in the world. That's the reason for all of the internal problems in our country, all the people who want to destroy the nation, that they want to take control of the nation. Their only problem is they're just believing things that aren't true. And those things have been built into them for so long, they can't imagine, they don't want to imagine that things can be any other way than the way they see it. And they'll refuse to even agree to listen. I mean, they'll cancel you. They don't want to hear the truth. But God says, I'm real and I'm not going to stop. And I'm never going to tell you anything that isn't real. I am going to tell you what is real. And by the way, the word truth, aletheia in Greek, okay, it's translated truth. Um, but you'll actually find some lexicons that'll tell you that it'll be truth, comma reality, or reality, comma truth. No one ever uses reality, but that's that I've heard or that I've read. But that's what truth is. Truth is reality. True is real. It's an
Right.
adjective, and it's what's real. And so if you start, whenever you see the word truth, if you change it to real or reality, it'll be a different perspective. It's like when you see the word obey or obedience, that it's to submit to hearing and hearing and hearing and thinking and pondering and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And there's so many words that when you start saying, repeating the verse to yourself with the true word, the Bible will begin to make sense like it has never before made sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of the contradictions and conflicts that you encounter go away, because in the Greek, there is no contradiction. It's all right. It's straight. God didn't screw up at all. The
Right.
only problem is there's a few verses here and there where some subsequent scribes of the New Testament changed some words or took some words out, but those are pretty much minor. I mean, it's not enough that I think it's dangerous.
Right.
Uh, it just I can think of one verse, Romans 8:1, that is utterly beyond marvelous what it says, but the last half of the verse has been taken out because, as far as I can see, there isn't a translator that understands that last verse. It just doesn't make sense.
Huh.
It makes great sense.
As you were talking, there were things popping in my head about the things you were saying. You know how sometimes like your mind will wander?
Yeah.
Like my mind wasn't wandering. And it was just taking it and like applying it in places I've seen it and
Yeah.
going, ah. I remember having a conversation with my oldest son,
Yeah.
and he was so frustrated because we were going to church and he was hearing something that was good, and he was frustrated that he didn't have it and experience it. And I said, it takes time to get it. And I said, buddy, he was like 12 or 13 at the time. And I said, it took you 12 or 13 years to learn this wrong. It might take you a few years to learn it right. Like it,
Yeah.
because that's how we learn.
Yes.
It is a process. And
Yes.
you're right. Sometimes it's overnight. Sometimes I remember when my dad was teaching me math, I think we talked about this. I kept thinking that it was, 1000. And he was like, no, that's 1,000. And I was like, no, that's 1000. And he was like, that's 1,000 though. And I was like, I'm not, you're telling me that something that is this is something else. And you're wrong and you're crazy and you're trying to trick me or something. Like, I don't understand why you're making this harder on me. But he knew that was 1,000, and then 10,000 and 100,000. And I just struggled so hard with those numbers and concepts when I was, I don't know, third, fourth, fifth grade, something, whenever you're learning some of that stuff. And I was so frustrated and, crying. And he's like, quit crying, but now I know it. And that was kind of an overnight, but it took me, weeks or months of looking at it. And it was I just couldn't get it. And then it just made sense. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's easy. And I couldn't see how I didn't get it before. I was like, what was it? Like, and I was so confused and so frustrated. And then when I got it, it just made perfect sense. So to tie that to everything you're saying, it can be a process. It can happen fast. But usually it's a process. Some stuff is, some stuff's quick, but you're right about the church and how they want it to be so fast. People, not just the church, everywhere.
Yeah.
And especially if God he's supposed to be magic and he's supposed to do it like this. It's supposed to be, Jesus touching the leper and he's not a leper anymore, or touching the blind man and he's not blind anymore. And that stuff, we'll get into that too. I would love to explore miracles, right?
Yeah.
But it was, like that stuff can happen, but it's often really gradual and teaching and learning and remembering.
Growth is gradual, know.
Yeah. And no. So anyway, that was amazing. I was enriched. I hope viewers are enriched by it. So I loved it and I so appreciate it. And I'm sure even everything you said didn't all get into me, because that's not always how it works.
It's
but
repetition,
I heard it.
repetition.
Yep,
repetition.
I heard it and it hit me, and it's gonna keep, it could be this afternoon, it could be in 5 minutes, it could be in 10 years. I just go, oh my gosh, I'm seeing something and it's not real, and I get it.